The story kicks off on a rainy night in a massive building in the city. Inside, we meet our hero, Soma Kazuya, who's in the middle of some serious trouble. His boss is fuming, throwing a bunch of papers at him and demanding to know what the heck he's looking at. Our boy apologizes and takes full responsibility for the mistake. On top of the boss, a bald-headed coworker also starts yelling at him because of his smile. The man tells Soma to read everything and forbids him from going home until it's finished. So, our protagonist gets on his knees to pick up all the scattered papers from the floor. Meanwhile, the two men keep complaining about the youth of today. A moment later, the bald guy thanks Soma for taking the fall for him. He says he's way too busy with clients to handle the proposals. Apparently, one of Soma's main job duties was to be the designated scapegoat. Even so, our hero asks about his promotion to a full-time position, but his coworker just tells him to focus on finishing the work first. Time flies, and it's already 2 in the morning, but Soma is still slaving away, completely exhausted. The office is completely empty and dark, and even if he wanted a break, he couldn't take one. From the window, he watches the city lights, thinking how beautiful it all is. But he knows that in this city, if you're not valuable, you're tossed out like garbage. So he heads back to his desk and continues his endless work until suddenly, something unexpected happens on his computer screen. All of a sudden, our boy simply passes out from exhaustion on the office floor. The next thing he knows, he wakes up sitting in a chair in the middle of a sky full of clouds. Completely confused and with no idea what's going on, he wonders where he is. In front of him, a mysterious woman starts listing all of his personal information. She reveals that our hero passed away at 3:20, 6 in the morning from being overworked. The white-haired lady then says he's exactly the kind of person she's been looking for. The two are sitting at a table in the sky, and Soma is still asking what's happening. She explains that to live you need money, love, and cats, but he doesn't get the cat part. But then the woman grabs a giant 100 hammer and gets ready for something. With one swing, she shatters the egg of love, saying he had none of that in his life. Right after, the money egg is also smashed without a hint of mercy. And finally, the cat egg is destroyed while our boy begs her to stop. She then points at him and says she has the perfect title for someone who worked himself to the grave. And that title was the ultimate corporate slave, which leaves Soma completely speechless. Our protagonist thinks that hearing that about his pathetic life hurts more than passing on, then remembers he's already gone. Tired of it all, he just asks to be allowed to move on and rest in peace. The woman gets furious with his attitude, calls him hopeless, and knocks him over. She yells that he's not moving on because he's being reincarnated as a hero. Lying on the ground, our hero finally asks who the heck she is. She introduces herself as Almile, the administrator of another world, or rather, a goddess. And just like that, right after kicking the bucket, our hero ends up in another job interview. His new job was to become a hero in another world, and to do that, he gets tossed out of a window. Our boy starts falling headfirst toward the ground, completely out of control. He plummets rapidly, pulled by the gravity of the new world. Desperate, our protagonist screams at the top of his lungs, thinking he's going to check out again. Suddenly, a massive explosion of light happens exactly where he was about to land. Right before he's turned into a pancake on the ground, someone manages to catch him at the last second. A bandaged hand grabs him firmly, preventing the fatal fall. It was a red-haired woman holding him, and she asks if Mr. Hero doesn't know how to fly. Our protagonist is dizzy and completely stunned by the whole situation. He then realizes he's really been reincarnated into another world. They walk through bumpy, unpaved streets. The architecture of the place looked like it was pulled straight out of a fantasy game. But what catches his attention the most are the numerous injured people. They were lying and sitting in the streets with empty stares. Everyone's face showed great suffering and despair. Soma asks why there are only elderly people and children, and the woman replies that the young ones perished in the war. She also says they're surrounded by the Demon King's army and takes him to see. From the top of the wall, he sees a massive horde of enemies surrounding the entire city. The woman who saved him is named Helga, a general who can barely keep her clothes on, and the army that's supposed to fight is made up of injured old folks and kids. Our boy senses the danger and sees that defeat is a sure thing, but he hopes Helga has a plan, so he gets straight to the point and asks what her strategy is for this situation. With a serious look, the general says she'll explain her grand plan. On a board, she shows that the enemy army has 100,000 soldiers, and they have only 100. Helga scribbles the numbers on the board to make her super precise calculations, and her conclusion is that if each of them defeats 1,000 enemies, victory is certain. Our hero gives a sarcastic thumbs up, realizing right then and there that she's a complete idiot. But Helga doesn't get the sarcasm and blushes, thinking he was complimenting her. Even so, Soma points out that there's a tiny problem with this plan. He asks how, exactly, each of them is supposed to take down 1,000 people. Her answer is simpler. Just don't get taken out until you've taken out the 1,000 enemies. Once again, our boy gives a thumbs up and confirms that she's a total moron, and the general gets all happy and flustered, thinking she was praised again. Suddenly, someone tugs on our protagonist's clothes, getting his attention. It's a little boy, all bandaged up, who looks really worried. The boy asks if the goddess would forgive him if he passes on before taking out the 1,000. Helga scolds him, saying the people shouldn't fear their end for the goddess. Our hero gives the kid some advice and tells him to eat more vegetables. Finally, he tells Helga that the goddess has a plan and that the two of them are enough. Meanwhile, in the enemy camp, the Demon King receives a visitor. One of his subordinates informs him that the rebels have just summoned a hero, but the weirdest part is that the hero and Helga are offering to surrender. The Demon King is intrigued by this unexpected and sudden information. Back to our heroes, they descend from the wall and face the enemy army. Soma says fighting so many from up high is suicide, but Helga reminds him that one can't beat 1,000. The general gets nervous and asks if they're really going to win, and Soma says his fear is just an act. Suddenly, an overwhelming power descends from the heavens right in front of them. The Demon King himself emerges from the shadows with an aura of pure evil. Our boy panics because he never expected the final boss to actually show up. Helga, on the other hand, faces the enemy with a determined and fearless gaze. She then activates her sword, which begins to glow with the power of 1,000 lightning bolts. The general stomps firmly on the ground, shattering everything around her, and readies herself for an attack. With a war cry, she charges full speed towards the Demon King. Our hero runs right behind her, as if he's going to provide some kind of support. However, he grabs Helga by the waist and throws her like a missile toward the king. The general becomes a spinning projectile, flying directly at the enemy. The Demon King's assistant is completely clueless as to what the point of that tactic is. With his face covered by shadow, our protagonist stands there in silence. And then, to everyone's surprise, he bows in a formal apology. Kneeling, our hero says that he has captured the leader of the rebels for the Demon King. He then continues his crazy and unexpected proposal for everyone there. With a bizarre smile, Soma offers to be a slave for the rest of his life. However, the Demon King sees no advantage in accepting their surrender. A boy gets tense and wonders if he caught the king on a bad day. Suddenly, the king throws two swords that spin through the air with incredible speed. They stick into the ground right in front of the captured Helga. The king then gives her a chance to challenge him to a fair fight, and so the general and the Demon King face off, ready for combat. Meanwhile, our protagonist hides with the Demon King's assistant. He greets her and thinks to himself that she's definitely his type. Far away, Helga picks up the sword and unleashes a golden aura of power. With clenched teeth, she yells that he's going to regret everything. An immense energy explodes from her as she prepares for her attack. Our hero remembers the goddess, saying that Helga is incredibly powerful. She was as strong as the ancient heroes and the best swordswoman in the world, and in a one fight, she could even defeat the Demon King. The king just watches as the general approaches with all her might. The warrior charges forward with a look full of fury and determination, and then With a blast of blue energy, she attacks the king with everything she's got. Impressed by the scene, our hero compares Helga to a human missile. The assistant then asks him to tell Helga that she always admired her. The general's attack causes a gigantic explosion of blue energy. However, Helga is in shock when she sees her attack had no effect at all. The Demon King hadn't moved a single inch from her attack. He simply stopped the powerful blow with just 2 of his fingers. The king even says that such a weak attack wasn't even worth the effort of blocking. Even so, he decides to give her one more chance to fight. In a flashback, we see that Helga used to wear restraining bands on her arms. These bands were a demonic seal that continuously drained her mana. She was supposed to wear them until the moment she faced the Demon King. When the seal is released, a great energy explodes from her body, and all the mana that had been absorbed up to that point returns to her. Back in the present, the general frees herself from the bands with an intense glow. The bandages then fly from her arms, as if they have a life of their own. They expand infinitely and advance towards the enemy. The Demon King just watches the bands coming his way, and then they begin to strike the king with multiple energy blows. Our heroes are shocked as the Demon King is being pushed back. The bands seal and absorb the opponent's mana, controlling them at will. With her bands expanding, Helga says it doesn't matter how strong he is, because she believes that if she can get his eyes, victory will be hers. Then, with her sword, she manages to land a direct hit on the Demon King's helmet. The tip of the blade stops millimeters from the great enemy's red eye. However, the Demon King simply catches her sword with his bare hand, and with absurd strength, he shatters the blade into several pieces. Our hero and the assistant are shocked by the scene and scream at the same time. Right after, an explosion of red and blue energy erupts on the spot. The Demon King's attack ends up wiping out all of his own soldiers. None of the Demon King's lackeys survive this display of power. The energy soars to the heavens, showing the scale of the villain's strength. Soma is on the ground in despair, and the assistant doesn't understand why he was chosen. In a flashback, we see Helga alongside other heroes to defeat the king. But in the end, she was the only one left to fight this impossible battle. Even so, she remains standing and willing to fight to the end. Back in the present, the Demon King's helmet shatters, and he complains it was his favorite. Helga is completely in shock to see he didn't suffer a single scratch. She doesn't understand how this is possible, since the goddess had a plan. Suddenly, the Demon King's hand rapidly approaches her face. He reveals his white hair and defeats the general with a single fatal blow. Kneeling on the ground, our hero panics when he sees the enemy's face. The Demon King has the same appearance as the goddess who sent him to this world. The villainess then asks again what the advantage would be in accepting his surrender. Soma knows that if he doesn't give a good answer, he'll be the next one to be defeated. The blonde assistant also thinks there's no escape, as there's no valid form of betrayal. She even says goodbye to our boy, calling him a pathetic comrade. Completely cornered, our protagonist starts to whimper quietly. The woman turns around, annoyed by the noise he's making on the ground. Suddenly, Soma simply barks like a dog, to everyone's surprise. He throws his head back and continues barking nonstop like an animal. The assistant is shocked because he gave up on making excuses and just became a dog. The Demon King finds the hero amusing and asks if he hates his role that much. A small smile then appears on the face of the story's great villainess. The assistant realizes he gave an answer that no one would have ever expected. The Demon Queen says that he will show the world the honor of being her dog. With a crazed smile, our boy continues his utterly bizarre performance. Lying on the ground, Helga wonders why the goddess chose such a useless hero. In her final moments, she still doesn't understand the deity's choice. Before being reincarnated, our hero goes through some prep for his new life. In addition to a tie, he also gets a pair of very stylish boots for combat. Our boy then convinces himself that his whole life of suffering was to become a hero. With open arms, he shouts that he has finally realized his destiny. However, the goddess Almile tells him to stop being so full of himself and pay attention to the plan. She then reveals that for the last 500 years, all heroes have been defeated by the Demon King. O'Mile also says that in a one-on-one fight, his chance of losing is 100%. Suddenly, a magic book appears and explains that there can only be one hero at a time. The book then calls O'Mile an idiot for forgetting such a basic rule of the world. Annoyed by the insult, the goddess punches the book and tells Soma to shut up too. The image of an angry man appears and yells at him for his reckless suggestion. But O'Mile gives a mischievous smile and says she found a glitch in this world. She explains that the strategy this time will be different, and Soma thinks it's because he's weak. The goddess then reveals her idea to break the rule of only one hero at a time. Her power is to summon a hero, and their ability is given according to their talent. Thus, she questions him about what would happen if she gave him the power to summon other heroes. Our boy goes nuts and says it would be like a god possessing all the heroes. O'Mile confirms the plan with a crazy look, just as excited as our protagonist. The genius strategy was to simply summon all the heroes to attack the Demon King. With so many legendary warriors fighting together, their victory would be guaranteed. Our hero then points out a flaw in the plan and asks what they would do if the Demon King ran away. O'Mile calls him clumsy and says she prepared something special for that. She then shows a bottle with a shimmering golden liquid on the table. Our boy asks if it's alcohol, and she explains that it causes paralysis for 1 minute. With this new information, our protagonist realizes he can win easily, and with a mischievous smile, he already starts thinking about what he'll do after the victory. He imagines himself ruling over the world as the God-chosen king. He then tries to suck up to the goddess, saying he's good at being managed, and he continues his speech, saying he'd do a great job taking care of the world. However, O'Mile cuts him off and yells that after defeating the Demon King, he's going to meet his end. She explains that his mission is simply reincarnate, summon the heroes, and then check out, and the bottle isn't for him, but for Helga, who will rule the world. A tear rolls down our boy's eye upon hearing his cruel fate. He then falls into despair for having to be taken out again so easily. Soma wonders if she doesn't care about his feelings just because he's a nobody. With a dark aura, he realizes that in the end, he'll gain nothing from this. His hand trembles as he laments that he'll walk away empty-handed. O'Mile just stares at him in silence for a moment without saying anything. But soon after, she starts laughing hysterically at his reaction. She then comforts him and says that obviously, she has a plan for that too. Our boy calms down, thinking that O'Mile is a goddess and won't treat him badly. However, the goddess reveals that his actual destiny was to become a common ant. And not just any ant, but a sterile worker ant that's good for nothing. With a flick of her finger, she then squishes the imaginary little ant on her finger. But if he cooperates with the mission, she'll turn him into a bee in his next life. It would still be a worker bee, but at least he wouldn't live in a dark cave. The life of an ant would be lonely and completely in the dark, without any hope. As a bee, however, he could see the sun, the flowers, and have a sliver of joy. Our protagonist then asks if he can't just become a human again. He says he doesn't care if it means having the same pathetic fate as before. O'Mile replies with a laugh that his ancestors didn't have enough virtue for that. The two continue their strange conversation in the middle of that giant library. Suddenly, the goddess gets furious and yells that he's in no position to ask for anything. With a trembling hand, our boy says he got her message loud and clear. Thus, with little choice, our hero raises his hand and agrees to the mission. The goddess then prepares to finally give him his new hero power. She begins to float in the air as a bluish energy completely envelops her. Her face turns into a shadow with red eyes, and she tells him to receive his power. Our protagonist is hit by the energy and starts screaming in agony. Lying on the floor, he complains that she didn't warn him the process would be so painful. He questions if she thought she didn't need to warn him about the pain. Bored, O'Mile yawns and asks if the process is over yet. She then points to a portal and tells our hero to hurry up and go. Sitting in the chair, our boy looks different, with a dark aura surrounding him. He stands up and says he has finally realized a great truth about his life. His miserable life wasn't the result of his lack of effort. He just entrusted his fate to things like rules and the judgment of others. With a grim face, he thanks the goddess for making him realize this. To defeat the demon king and change his life, the standard approach won't work. Omail gets annoyed with his speech and asks if he's gone completely crazy. Suddenly, our hero grabs the bottle and smacks the goddess on the head with it. He stands there as Omail falls to the ground, completely dazed by the blow. She can't believe she was hit on the head with the bottle of liquor, and she gets even more furious, thinking that a commoner like him did this to her. Engulfed in a purple aura, she says she's going to turn him into a worm, and it wouldn't be just any worm, but a complete and useless worm. With a face full of hatred, she screams and curses him with her powers. The goddess says he will spend the rest of his life buried in trash. However, the liquid from the broken bottle starts to trickle down her head. Our hero then pours the rest of the paralyzing potion on the fallen goddess. Lying on the floor, the goddess realizes the liquor paralyzes her for a full minute. Our hero then says that her angry face is the same one he used to see in the mirror. The goddess thinks she just needs to hold out for 1 minute to get her revenge. However, our boy grabs her face forcefully and without any mercy, and then he shoves the rest of the bottle into her mouth to make her drink it all. He says she chose him because she thought he was easy to manipulate, but our protagonist warns her that he won't give her the chance to get revenge. With a determined look, he reveals that he has finally made a decision, and that decision is that he will never again follow someone else's plan. To seal his decision, he forces the goddess to drink even more of the potion. He then bids farewell to his old diligent and submissive self forever, and with all his might, he smashes the goddess's head with the empty bottle. His hands turn red as he processes what he has just done. The shock is so great that our hero ends up throwing up right there on the floor. He can't believe that a nobody like him managed to defeat a goddess. And now that he can even take out a god, nothing scares him anymore. Since his fate is to become a worm, he has nothing left to fear. With a new determination, he swears he will defeat the Demon King, and after that, he's going to live a life far more intense than anyone else. Cracking a grin worthy of the Cheshire Cat, he thinks about how he'll reign supreme and become the new Demon King himself. Meanwhile, the library books panic over the demise of the Dimensional Manager. The magic book is frantic because there's no emergency plan for this. The scene then shifts to the kingdom's capital, Auberville. 1 month later, in a grand hall, our hero swears to work for the Demon King until the day he perishes. However, the Demon Queen, who looks identical to the goddess, says she hasn't given him any missions. Soma is completely confused by the response and salutes without understanding. The other demons comment that his position is lower than a doorman's. To better understand the story, we go back 1 month to the demon camp. There, our protagonist is treated like a dog and forced to jump through fiery hoops. The assistant pulls him with a leash and says that from now on, he is the Demon King's dog. Lying on the ground, our boy asks if she doesn't know what a metaphor is. But the blonde explains that the kingdom banned ambiguous expressions a long time ago. She then tells him to get up, because the next training session was biting. Our hero then appears, bizarrely licking the assistant's leg. Annoyed with his choice of location, she slaps him across the face with all her might. Thus, our protagonist ends up knocked out on the ground after being hit by the blonde. Lying on the grass, he remembers that he surrendered to save people's lives. The image of the little boy worried about the goddess comes back to his mind. Our boy then admits to himself that he was just trying to look cool, and as a reward for his training, he receives a bowl full of meat cubes. The assistant says that it wasn't dog food, but canned meat for officers. Lying on the ground, our hero listens to the advice she has for him. She advises him to follow the Demon King's orders to have a chance. Looking at the food, our boy realizes he doesn't have much choice but to obey. From that day on, he wakes up earlier than any military dog in the army. He even stands guard while the assistant bays to ensure there are no enemies. Just like a real dog, He dedicates himself to training every single day. He trains so much he even looks like a real dog, rubbing against a post. As a result, he earns the honor of guarding the Demon King's tent at night. Human evolution took 4.5 million years to happen. Soma's evolution from a dog to a captain took only 45 days. Back in the present, the demons question Her Majesty's decision. The assistant explains that the Queen wants someone neutral to handle internal affairs. With a confident smile, our protagonist prepares for his new mission. He then begins to walk through the city streets in his new uniform. However, he realizes that if he draws too much attention, he could become a target. And the worst part is, he received no instructions from the Demon King on what to do. Our hero then freaks out because the situation is the same as in his past life, but he refuses to go back to his loser mentality and tries to cheer himself up. He then decides to set aside his prejudices and face the situation head-on. Arriving at his new office, he presses the doorbell. The door opens, and two beautiful elves welcome him with open arms. Our boy turns bright red and gets flustered by the warm reception. One of them takes his hand and invites him inside. He walks down the corridor, thinking it's the first time he's ever held a girl's hand, and in his mind, he already starts imagining what name he'd give their son. The other elf asks him to sign some papers to make his position official. Our hero misunderstands completely and agrees to marry her on the spot. They start walking away from him quickly, not understanding anything. The blonde then says that now that he's the captain, he can perish in peace. Suddenly, our protagonist appears in an execution yard. He even tries to make a joke about treasure to lighten the mood, but the guards tell him to shut up because the situation was very serious. The elf explains that his squad comes in last place every year. Vice Captain Hammond is crying on the floor, begging for his life. The member Merritt is tied up in a very strange way in the middle of everyone, and even the squad's mascot, a panda, is also on the list. And finally, our hero Soma, who just arrived and is already about to be executed. The elf then shouts loudly that everyone there is sentenced. And to top it all off, his wig falls off right in the middle of his speech. Our hero panics as he sees workplace bullying has reached its peak. With his wig back in place, the elf applies some weird glue to his head to fix it. And after adjusting his hair, he introduces himself as Griffon of the pure, blooded elf clan. He then says he'll be the one to finish off our hero, who is tied up. However, the story flashes back a bit, and we see the assistant Marie warning Soma about Griffon. She also tells him to be careful with the leash while he's out walking some dogs. The lady explains that Griffon wanted the director position, and that's why he's coming after him. Thus, our protagonist would certainly become a target for the elf. Our boy then asks what plan his ally, Marie, has in mind. With a confident smile, the blonde says she actually has two great plans. The first option was simply a frontal assault, and Soma isn't too keen on the idea. He even makes fun of the name Griffon, asking if it's some kind of pet's name. And he continues, saying that only farmers care about all that lineage and pure blood talk. One of the guards gets furious and tells him to shut up, defending his lord. Our hero then remembers being forged by the goddess in his past life, and he also went through super rigorous training as a military dog. That's why he doesn't even know how strong he's become after all that. Seeing his aura, his companions get excited, thinking they're saved. The enemies, on the other hand, are completely intimidated by so much power. With his hands cuffed, he asks if they really think they can take him out, and then, with pure strength, our hero simply shatters the cuffs to pieces. Free from the chains, our hero charges full speed at one of the guards. One of them shoots, but our boy dodges the bullet with absurd speed. In the blink of an eye, he's on top of the enemy with a precise strike, and just like that, the first guard is easily defeated, down on the ground without a chance. The other soldiers are completely shocked by our hero's strength. Lying on the ground, our hero grabs the rifle from one of the unconscious soldiers, and with the weapon in hand, he uses the rifle to defend himself from another guard. Then, he points the weapon at the enemy and pulls the trigger without a second thought. With a perfect shot, the first goon is finally taken down for good. Meanwhile, the other guard yells and tells him not to move or he'll bite. However, our boy ignores him and hits the second one with the butt of the gun. And so, another one of the Elfa's goons is knocked out on the ground, unresponsive. Seeing the scene, Gryphon yells that the gun only fires blanks. Our hero then throws the rifle like a spear at the last standing guard. The throw is so powerful it creates a crater in the ground and defeats the third one. Now that everyone has been defeated, only our hero and Gryphon remain. With a trembling hand, the elf draws his pistol and fires without hesitation. But our boy puts on some sunglasses and stops the bullet in mid-air. A flash of light occurs as the bullet explodes in the air without hitting him, and with his stylish glasses, he dodges the bullet that was fired. Our hero glares at Gryphon with a look of contempt after his victory. With a simple gesture, he shows that the stuck-up elf was no match for him. Seeing his strength, all the other soldiers bow and call him Lord. The two elves who welcomed him now look at him with hearts in their eyes. His squadmates celebrate in relief because the new captain is incredible. Even the enemies switch sides and swear loyalty to the powerful Soma. Our hero then lets out a crazy laugh and tells everyone to shut their traps. Another group of enemies watches from a distance, thinking he's lost his mind, but the scene flashes back to when he said that if they were going to use force, he wouldn't show them a shred of mercy, because pity was completely out of the question in that fight. Then one of the soldiers really did charge at him with everything he had. Our boy dodges the attack and complains about wasting energy for nothing. He then slides across the ground and advances at an absurd speed. With a single punch, he hits the soldier square in the stomach. The blow is so strong it makes the enemy spit blood on the spot. Next, he grabs the rifle and uses it to bash the guy's face. With a powerful kick, he sends the soldier flying without any effort. The man soars away after that kick, and all this contrasts with his squad's initial reaction, who thought he was weak. Even after winning, he says plan have failed, and upside down, he announces that plan B is about to begin. But suddenly, our hero is thrown far away, as if he's been defeated. Gryphon is completely confused by this unexpected turn of events. Soon after, he starts laughing hysterically, thinking he's won the fight. Lying on the ground, our protagonist hears the elf ask if that was all the strength he had. With a gun in hand, Gryphon says he's going to teach our boy a lesson. He tells Soma to kneel and bark like a dog to spare his life. That way, his promotion to department director would disappear forever. Seeing the scene, Hammond yells that there's no shame in admitting defeat in that situation. However, our hero explains that he became a dog so that no one else would have to. Gryphon and his goons don't understand why he's acting so confident. Our protagonist remains lying on the ground with a calm expression on his face. Meanwhile, in Marie's room, she's sleeping peacefully with her dogs. Suddenly, all the dogs wake up and dash off at high speed. The stampede is so intense that they end up throwing the blonde right out of bed. Like blurs, the dogs run through the city streets without stopping for a second. They charge forward at an absurd speed towards our hero in danger. Gryphon finds it strange that our boy is still lying down and senses something is wrong. And then, a gigantic explosion of dust and power happens right in front of them. The impact is so strong that the elf's wig flies off, revealing his shiny bald head. Completely terrified, he looks at the smoke and wonders who those guys are. From the smoke, the Demon King's own beloved dogs emerge. This leaves Gryphon bald and shocked, asking how he commands the dogs. Our hero then explains that he was treated as a military dog until he took the position, and with a smile, he asks what the crime is for hurting the Demon King's dog. Right after, one of the dogs charges full speed at one of the soldiers. In addition, the Rottweiler also goes after another goon without mercy, and even the little pug attacks Gryphon from behind with all its fury. Finally, the giant dog chomps down on the stuck-up elf's head in one go. Even so, Gryphon tries to argue that using the king's property is a crime. However, our boy tells one of the elves to take a closer look at the signature on the paper. Upon seeing the document, They freak out because that wasn't his real name. Soma then reveals that it was the name he would give to his future son. Hearing this, the blonde elf falls into despair for losing her chance at love. While her friend consoles her, our hero says he's also single and leaves. Realizing he's lost, Gryphon uses his experience in surrendering to change tactics. His face contorts with hatred for a brief moment, but soon all his cells shift to form a new expression. He then forces a desperate, fawning smile for our hero, covered in dog drool. He says it was all just a welcome prank. However, Soma reminds him that the kingdom banned ambiguous expressions, and if he said, "take out," he meant it. With a cold gaze, our hero takes Gryphon's gun and points it at himself. He places it against his own head without showing any fear. And then our protagonist yells for the elf to just shoot already. The scene then shifts to Gryphon's past, which was quite complicated. Even though he came from a noble family, people said he was useless, and because he was so spoiled, everyone believed the future of the elves was at risk in archery practice. He was so bad that he hit his own butler. To prove his worth, he joined the group of heroes led by Helga. Full of himself, he tried to make the warrior his subordinate, but it didn't work out, because he believed he would defeat the Demon King and marry the beautiful Helga. However, the redhead tore up his love letter and scorned him in front of everyone. And so, heartbroken, he was left behind by the warrior. With nowhere to go, he tried to get Helga by using the Demon King's power, but in the end, he surrendered willingly and begged for his life. The Demon Queen saw no advantage in accepting his surrender, so he tried to suck up to the Queen, saying she was invincible. As punishment, a hot liquid was poured over his head without mercy, and so the Demon Queen left him on the ground, not giving a single care about him. Lying in disgrace, he tried one last gambit to turn the tables. That's why he promised a bloodless surrender of the castle to the Demon King. But he never expected our hero and Helga to surrender with white flags. Suddenly, the Demon King appears and throws him to the ground, saying he's in the way. In a flashback, we see that he bribed the king to get his current position. That's why he cries, saying it's unfair that only Soma receives the king's favor. Thus, he unleashes an immense energy for being treated like complete trash. Our hero then smiles, realizing his victory is guaranteed. The story flashes back, and we see Marie explaining that she had two plans for the situation. The first plan was simply a direct, frontal assault on the enemies. The second plan was to beg for forgiveness and appeal to their mercy. However, our boy rejects both and says he needs to act arrogant, because only then could he maintain the facade of being a trusted man of the king. Back in the present, Gryphon is surrounded by a blue aura of power. The energy is so strong that our hero can barely breathe near him. Meanwhile, the Demon King's dogs are attacking the elf's goons. Gryphon trembles because he knows he could be defeated, but they don't attack out of fear. Our protagonist then asks if no one has ever told him something, and with a mocking face, he says that Gryphon is ugly with or without hair. The elves are shocked because he made fun of the Lord's most sensitive spot. Even the goons being attacked yell for Gryphon to finish our hero off. With clenched teeth, the elf swears he will never forgive this humiliation. Suddenly, it clicks, and Gryphon realizes something very important. He wonders if the weakness our hero showed was all intentional, and that getting beaten up in front of everyone was to make them think he was an idiot. Behind him, the elf sees the shadow of the Demon King himself supporting him. Our protagonist then reveals his darker side to the enemy. Gryphon understands that his weapon isn't strength, but the king's backing. With a smile, our hero draws two knives and prepares for the final blow. In an instant, he passes the elf and attacks him with his sharp blades. And just like that, Gryphon's hair is completely shaved off, leaving him bald. One of the goons screams in shock as their lord has lost all his hair. Soma says he has corrected his vanity in the name of the Demon King and his taxes. With a bleeding lip, Gryphon understands our protagonist's message, and unable to bear the humiliation, he ends his own life right there. Our hero just watches the scene and says the view is magnificent. Now everyone believes he is the king's dog, and his arrogance is his protection. Suddenly, A dark portal opens in the sky with a voice saying, "Found you." A giant eye appears and says it has taken out a god and is now looking for the insect. Our boy just says the inauguration ceremony is over and chills. The scene shifts to a white-haired guy who has defeated several enemies. Confused, our hero wonders why no one around him is moving. Even the squad's pug is completely frozen in time. He then realizes he can't move either and freaks out over an itch on his nose. Suddenly, the giant eye appears and says it has found the insect that took out the goddess. The creature then shouts Soma's name and says he won't live in peace after what he did. The book complains about the overtime it had to work to clean up our hero's mess. It continues its lecture, saying it even has dark circles from working so much. Suddenly, the clouds in the sky begin to fall like a flood over the city. The scene resembles the Cloud Fortress, where the goddess Almile used to live. Our hero senses the danger and wonders if the crazy book is coming after him. With no way to escape, he is captured by the clouds and left hanging upside down. A web of red energy traps him completely in the air with no chance of escape. And suddenly, the demon queen appears out of nowhere and breaks our hero's paralysis. The queen then reveals the book's name is Antiphon and thanks it for the reward. And Typhon is shocked that even time paralysis doesn't work on the champion who unified the world. With her sword in hand, she asks why she can't feel Almile's presence. Our hero then remembers that voice and recognizes the noisy book from the Cloud Fortress. Antiphon replies that she is no longer the administrator and has no right to know. Somo is shocked and wonders if the demon queen's name was Antiphon. The queen faces the clouds and asks if Antiphon plans to attack her too. With a smile, she says the book is underestimating her divine power. With a swing of her sword, the demon queen unleashes a bluish energy. Right after, she cuts the energy web that was holding our hero in the air. And with a smile, she asks Antiphon if that was all its power. She then slaps our boy across the face a few times to finally wake him up. Floating amidst the clouds, the queen confronts her enemy head-on. Suddenly, several beams of dark energy are fired in her direction. Antiphon then launches its most powerful attack against the demon queen. However, she simply stops the blow with her bare hand as if it were nothing. And then she counter-attacks with a blast of bluish energy. Antiphon yells for her not to get so cocky with her small victory. The clouds turn dark and fill with red lightning, preparing for an attack. The demon queen then shouts and invokes the power of her mortal strength. Suddenly, a shower of golden light falls upon the city and its people. A bright golden crown materializes in the sky in an intense glow. The crown then floats above the queen's head, increasing her power. With a devastating attack, she launches a beam of colorful energy at the book. The blow hits Antiphon squarely, sending it flying through the sky. With a victorious smile, the demon queen observes the result of her attack. The book's eye is hit dead on by the demon queen's energy. However, it says she is as foolish as Almile, for its true body is not there. Our hero watches the clouds approaching again with a worried look. Submerged in them, he yells that Her Majesty is suffering a home invasion. He then complains that the clouds are trying to invade all of his orifices. Desperate, our boy continues to scream for the demon queen nonstop. He changes his tune, saying that it's actually a robbery. The demon queen realizes that Antiphon is determined to finish her off. So, she dives from the heavens like a missile to attack the enemy with everything she's got. The impact of her blow causes a gigantic explosion on the city ground. In the middle of the crater, the queen stands up, unharmed and ready for the next round. On the ground, our hero thanks Her Majesty for protecting his chastity. The queen then faces a strange energy forming in the sky above them. With a serious look, she prepares to use her Gaia Force ability. A large gate called the Gate of Hades appears and begins to open. From within, eerie skeletal hands slowly start to emerge. Soon after, a skeleton with a glowing blue eye peeks through the crack. And so, two giant skeletons with blue flames emerge from the great gate. The queen summons her strongest minion, the powerful Skull Seraphim. Meanwhile, our hero throws himself on the ground and decides to play possum. The giant skeleton's hands advance towards Anifon's clouds, and with a single squeeze, it crushes the clouds as if they were nothing. Antifon finally understands what's happening in the middle of this mess. Thus, it praises the queen for unifying the world and possessing both mortal and Gaia powers. In a flashback, Anifon remembers that Amal misjudged the demon queen's power, and because of that, the warrior Helga ended up being defeated so brutally. Back in the present, the demon queen is inside a blue energy barrier. She then asks if Antifon fled the dimension because it was humiliated, and also if it gave the order to take out Soma, who had surrendered to her. However, Antifon thinks the queen doesn't know that it was our hero who defeated Amal. With a serious look, the queen orders Antifon to become her servant once again. Her giant skeleton then prepares to attack the enemy book with everything it has. With a powerful gust, it charges without hesitation towards Antifon. The blow shatters the dimensional barrier and drags the book to another place. Suddenly, they appear in a large white castle floating in the sky. Antifon realizes it has been dragged to the cloud fortress against its will. The demon queen then prepares for the final battle in that sacred place. With a crazed smile, she screams that this was finally happening. However, Antifon reveals that the fortress is an illusion where the gods reside. The castle's clouds begin to dissolve into thousands of particles in the air. And just like that, the magnificent white castle simply disappears before them. The queen stares at her skeletal servant as the illusion completely fades away. The queen then realizes she can't become a goddess the easy way. Antifon says it's waiting, and our hero feels something strange in his body. Suddenly, the book's eye begins to shatter completely in the sky. The giant skeleton then tells our boy to stay back for safety. Thus, the time paralysis is deactivated, and Soma realizes he can move. The dogs go back to attacking the elves, and our hero wonders if they didn't see the fight. One of the goons is all scratched up and in shock from the dogs' return. And suddenly, the elf is brutally defeated by the furious dogs. Our hero sits in the middle of all the defeated enemies. None of the elf's goons survive the dogs' surprise attack. The white-haired man we saw earlier appears, all beaten up on the ground. The queen explains that was the damage received during the time paralysis. Suddenly, a large explosion occurs and a monster descends from the sky. An old man says that getting close to level 50 is to become a monster. Seeing the danger, our hero desperately screams for an F1. He looks at the explosion and wonders why the backup isn't arriving. A blue-haired guy then yells that it's because he's too weak. In a fight scene, we see a guy being thrown to the ground with one blow. Soon after, a boxer lands a powerful punch on another opponent. And finally, a girl finishes the fight with an incredible spinning kick. In the midst of the confusion, a bizarre trio appears, striking a very strange pose. The blue-haired girl gets annoyed and yells that they're too weak to help. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a woman is training hard in the rain. Our hero then yells for her to hurry up, and then barks like a dog. Thus, our protagonist salutes and accepts the new order from his mistress. The demon queen praises him, saying he's a good dog. She then sends him to handle the cleanup at the assistant Mary's house. Our boy gets tense and wonders how he's going to explain all that mess. The queen tells him to make up any excuse, like a natural disaster. Looking at the destruction, our hero realizes he'll have to improvise. Suddenly, a small white creature vomits a river of blue water out of nowhere, and the city is being attacked by thousands of these bizarre little creatures. A blonde in a cape looks at the destruction and asks what the heck happened. A man explains that he knelt down to sneeze, and everything collapsed. The next moment, the building simply exploded into pieces. He thinks his superpowers have awakened, but the blue-haired girl doubts it. The man gets furious and yells that she can't be sure of that. On the roof, she analyzes that the cuts on the building were made by a sword, and that the residual mana in the air has a disturbing underworld aura. Suddenly, the blonde with glasses gets annoyed with the conversation and tells everyone to shut up. The panda boasts that if he hadn't blocked the attack, everyone would have perished. because the white creatures eat the bodies and decompose them into nutrients. And at the end of the whole process, they just become a pile of fertilizer for nature. Marie then hugs the panda and thanks him for saving everyone's life there. The big guy gets all red and embarrassed by the blonde's affection on his belly. The blue-haired girl explains that he's asking her not to stop petting him, and with a smile, she says she understands men and pandas because she was once a courtesan. Hammond then approaches and calls her Queen Marie for having been with the Demon King. However, she tells him to stop using that title because the human kingdom is gone, and with a serious look, Marie warns him not to get close to her because she's a traitor. Far away, Soma works on a very thankless task at his makeshift desk. He gives a thumbs up and tells a little girl that her father perished protecting the king. The girl cries a lot and clings to her mother's legs, completely devastated. The mother then gently strokes her daughter's head to try to comfort her. Our hero continues his lie, saying that her husband was crushed while saving civilians. The blonde woman remains silent and doesn't seem to believe his story much, and she's pregnant, which makes the whole situation even sadder and more complicated. Our boy prepares to continue his heroic speech about the deceased husband. Suddenly, another woman appears and says her husband wasn't that kind of person, and with a serious look, our hero reveals the man's final message, which was to pay his tab at the brothel. The woman despairs, screaming and calling our hero trash while covering her face. She then stands up, furious, and asks why he lied like that. And she continues, saying that even if her husband was trash, he deserved the truth. Our boy just listens to everything in silence with a less than friendly expression. Suddenly, Marie appears and asks why he kept lying even after getting beaten up. She then offers to take the blame for him, since she's his superior. However, the blonde is confused and doesn't understand our protagonist's attitude. Sitting at his desk, he finally begins to explain the reason for his actions, and he says he didn't want to just dismiss their deaths with some flimsy excuse. The scene then shifts to his locker, which is covered in graffiti by his colleagues. Our hero then touches the red paint, stained and vandalized wall. In a flashback, we see two guys laughing at him while he eats alone. Hammond advises him to be patient, because everyone is frustrated and will calm down. He was known as a miser but settled down after losing his family. Melito then offers to investigate and punish those responsible for the bullying. She's a mysterious woman who got her connections in the red light district. Our hero is impressed by her attitude and thinks she's amazing. He then holds a graffiti-covered uniform and thinks about what his new friends said. With a determined look, our protagonist finally makes a decision, and he confronts his bullies, because he's not going to take it anymore. In the cafeteria, the two bullies continue to laugh and mock our hero, but suddenly, our boy appears and slaps one of them on the back of the head. With a smile on his face, he says their laughter is contagious. The man gets furious at his audacity and calls him a scumbag. He then rips his clothes and transforms into a muscular giant. Everyone around is completely shocked by the sudden transformation. The brute then charges full speed towards our protagonist. However, Soma ignores him and starts picking his nose with his finger. The man stops his attack and complains about him using his own hand for that. Our hero then asks Melito what the punishment for his crime would be. Upon hearing that his family would be executed, the big guy panics. So our boy lands a powerful kick and asks if it was him. Lying on the ground, the man swears it wasn't him who graffitied the locker. Our protagonist then points to the vandalized locker and asks again. Crying, the man says it wasn't him who did that either. Our hero then turns to the crowd and asks him to point out a suspect, and he starts slapping everyone, asking who the culprit is. He hits one of the guys hard to get an answer. Soon after, a blonde guy also gets a slap across the face without mercy, and not even the girl escapes the beatdown to find the real culprit. Suddenly, one of the guys points to his colleague and says he's the culprit. Our hero then turns and asks the reason for the accusation. The man explains that it's because he's the only one who hasn't been hit yet. Our boy agrees with the logic and slaps the last suspect. Tired of all the slapping, he complains that his hand is starting to swell, and he thinks that to be fair, the ideal thing would be to punch everyone at once. Hammond then says that's just picking a fight with everyone for no reason, but our hero ignores him and gets on a chair to make a speech. He yells that it doesn't matter who the culprit is, because he's not satisfied, and that he will forgive the person responsible for the prank if they turn themselves in now. Melito watches the scene and thinks our protagonist is an interesting man. With a crazy smile, our hero thinks that the more aggressive he is, the more they will fear him. He then realizes that Gryphon hasn't shown up and wonders where he is. Far away, the elf is lying on the ground with a mushroom in his nose. A white-haired man named Astete is using him as a golf tee, and with a club, he hits the poor guy's head without any mercy. Astete even complains that he's so useless, he can't even hold the ball. The elf then begs for mercy from the demon Lord Astete. However, the man just steps on his head with his boot without a care, and he asks if a golf tee is allowed to move on its own. Lying on the ground, the elf Gryphon begs for Lord Astete to stop. However, the white-haired man just shouts, "Bingo," and throws a mushroom. Suddenly, several colorful mushrooms start sprouting from the elf's body. The mushroom creature said he's only alive because he offered up the elven mother tree. Soon after, the two elves we saw earlier ask Lord Astete to calm down. They whisper and ask him to find it in his heart to forgive Gryphon. And to convince him, one of them says they would both do anything for him. The elf then opens her blouse, showing she wasn't bluffing with her offer. With a mischievous smile, Astete repeats the question, asking if they would do anything. He then embraces them both and confirms he accepts any kind of favor from them. The Lord then says they will compensate him with their bodies. However, he simply crushes both of their heads without any mercy. Gryphon screams in despair and cries, watching the horrible scene unfold. Astete then stands there, holding the hair of one of the defeated elves. A stained glass window explains that demons possess the longevity of elves and the technology of dwarves. Additionally, they also have the physique of beastmen and the magic of elementals. And finally, the growth potential of humans, making them the perfect life form. With a smile, Astete reveals he is the 10th child created by the demon queen herself. That's why he says that even though he's royalty, the elves are nothing but insects to him. One of them starts laughing, feeling her body become light, and wonders why she's still alive. Upside down, Gryphon begs to be punished in place of his relatives. He continues his speech, saying the two of them were the only family he had left. Astete watches the scene and seems to be moved by the elf's attitude. Suddenly, the Lord starts to cry and says his situation is inviable, because even though he's a failure, his family doesn't hate him for it, and in fact, they even tried to sacrifice themselves to protect him from everything. Astete then freaks out and wonders why he didn't become a Kingforge too. The story explains that the Kingforges are 9 demons created by the king. They are known as the powerful first-generation demons, and they created 9 armies with blood contracts, giving rise to the second generation, which in turn mixed with other races and created a weaker third generation. However, Astete is a special case, created after the unification of the continent. Even so, he complains that he's the only one of the children who didn't become a Kingforge, and he says his siblings are just slaughtering tools created by his mother. He yells that he was born to build the new kingdom, and Gryphon thinks it sounds like a soap opera. With a crazed smile, Astete says he is the most favored among them all. Gryphon then promises that the elves will find a way to transform him. Astete calms down and asks why he picked a fight with our hero, Soma. The elf is speechless and can't give an answer to the question. Then the Lord says that Soma is just a stray that nobody in the kingdom likes. Astete then lifts Gryphon by the neck while the elf cries nonstop. With a smile, the Lord says that thanks to him, he's become the queen's problem child. He then warns Gryphon to use his head more in his next life. The demon lord draws his sword and prepares for the final blow. Suddenly, 2 maids appear and say the building's restoration is complete. Astete gets annoyed and says he was at a good part and was about to finish off the elf. The ladies warn that this will affect his contribution points to the kingdom. With little choice, he agrees and gives up his fun for now. Suddenly, his head starts to twist in a bizarre way, and he simply removes his own head with his hands in a fit of rage. In his hands, the head transforms into a miniature castle. Far away, Soma and his squad are eating out because he beat everyone up. Suddenly, the ground shakes and the entire restaurant starts to sway. A giant hand appears from the sky and places a new building where the old one was. Our hero is shocked and wonders if the kingdom's technology was that insane. Hammond explains that this is Lord Astite's ability. Melito adds that he is the benefactor of the elf Gryphon. Our protagonist is disgusted and completely loses his appetite. In the background, everyone praises Astite's power, calling him the future of the kingdom. The Lord then receives his 145,202 points. One of the maids warns that his brother's head isn't fitting right. Astite then tries to put his head back on and screams in pain during the process. He complains that no matter how many times he tries, it always hurts, and hopes he doesn't get dumber. The maids look at the city model and see there's no more space to build. The Lord freaks out when he discovers there's nowhere left to build in the capital. They explain that he's 10,000 points short of reaching the weakest Kingforge. Astite complains that the Kingforges earned their points during the Age of Conquest, and because he was born in a time of peace, he can only build cities. He then realizes he'll have to gather the points slowly, one castle at a time. The Lord freaks out thinking about how many years that will take. The maids then try to cheer him up, saying the future belongs to him. Lying on the floor, Gryphon realizes that Astite is just a child craving affection. Suddenly, the Lord gets close to the elf's face with a very strange look. Gryphon then calls him Master Astite, not understanding why he's so close. The maids find the scene cute and comment on the two men getting close. The elf then says he admires him like an older brother. Suddenly, a colorful energy comes out of Astite's mouth and goes into the elf's. The maids comment on the fluid exchange and the adult games. Soon after, Astite is covered in a strange, yellowish goo. Gryphon looks at the Lord's state and thinks he can still be saved. Lying on the floor, Gryphon declares his love, saying he loves Lord Astite like a father. The Lord then freaks out and starts spinning furiously at the elf's declaration. His spinning causes a large explosion of dust and power in the area. Suddenly, Gryphon emerges from the rebel with a completely muscular body. Astite complains that he can't even suck up to someone properly. Meanwhile, the two elves are covered in a disgusting and strange goo. The Lord then tells them to become fertilizer, along with their useless family. Suddenly, an old-fashioned telephone on top of a mushroom starts to ring. One of the maids answers and asks who's on the other end of the line. Astite says he doesn't want to see anyone at the moment and tells her to dismiss the visitor. The maid then informs them that her brother doesn't even want to see the fifth Kingforge. The woman on the other end of the line freaks out and yells at the maid on the phone. She asks if the call dropped and if they said anything else. The maid then reveals that if he takes out Suma, he will be recommended for Kingforge. Hearing the offer, the other maid approaches and calls her brother. Astite is then filled with joy and shouts that his era has finally arrived. However, his sister reminds him that he can't leave until the fusion with the tree is complete. Lying in the goo, Gryphon says he has a great idea for Master Astite. He continues, saying he has a plan to get rid of our hero, Soma. The Lord then tells him to shut up and snaps his fingers thoughtfully. Annoyed, Astite throws a mushroom at Gryphon and tells him to shut up. Meanwhile, our hero is sitting at a table surrounded by several guards. Suddenly, Marie appears and warns that according to a reliable source, he's going to meet his end today. Our boy is shocked and freaks out that she said it so bluntly. However, the blonde just says the decision has already been made and there's nothing to be done. With a serious look, Marie warns that according to a reliable source, our hero is going to meet his end tonight. Our boy then questions who would dare try something against the loyal god of the Demon King. She begins to explain that 1 hour and 33 minutes ago, Grayfon's supporter met with Astete, and that 1 hour and 2 minutes ago, Astete's reconstruction was delayed by 13 seconds. Furthermore, 51 minutes ago, the 5th Kingforge called Astete for 21 seconds. Finally, the blonde says she appeared before him just 10 minutes ago with the information. Sipping her tea, she then asks what his thoughts are on the whole situation. Our protagonist freaks out, wondering how she connected such random facts to reach that conclusion. However, Mary reveals that she actually just bugged Astete's phone, leaving our hero confused. Annoyed, she yells that they need to go to a safe place, and he complains about her beating around the bush. Thus, the two arrive at a giant, dark fortress with red inscriptions. The blonde explains that this is Stonewall, a defensive facility that has become a safe house. Our hero then starts to suck up to her, saying that to him, she's the veteran. Suddenly, an older man gets startled upon hearing his name, Raffle, the strongest in history. It turns out that during the 500-year Great War, he fought alone for 300. Marie then provokes him, saying that for someone so good at history, he had a pathetic life, and she adds that his resistance time was 45 minutes, the weakest. Our boy defends himself, saying that if the outcome is the same, he's the strongest for having saved time. Far away, Hammond tells Melito that she can still flee and save herself from the mess. However, she replies that if it weren't for Captain Gryphon, he would have already taken them out a long time ago. Melito then says that despite everything, the captain protected her dignity in the past. In a flashback, Hammond questions him for making enemies of his own colleagues. However, we see Gryphon's goons on the floor, begging for forgiveness and saying they were wrong. Our hero remembers that on his first day, the 6th squad was almost executed, and while everyone was kneeling, Melito was the only one hanging from the ceiling. Disgusted, our protagonist simply calls everyone their perverts. The men then bow and offer deep apologies for what they did. Soma tells them to stay in that position until he's had his fill of beating them. Reading a book, Melito thinks that despite everything, our hero is pretty cool. Back in the present, a gear turns, showing that the plan is in motion. Our protagonist and Marie then get on an elevator to the top of the building. Down below, the rest of the squad runs and yells that they're not even yet. From above, our hero shouts for Melito and Hammond to go home and escape. As they run, Melito tells the panda that it doesn't need to walk on 2 legs. Our boy then explains that a big shot in the kingdom is trying to take him out. Hammond gets annoyed and tells him not to worry about them at a time like this. And he questions why he's treating them like humans now, when before they were just sacrifices. Desperate, he continues to run and shout that the captain is about to perish. Our hero remains silent for a moment and thinks about the situation, and the image of the goddess he defeated appears in his mind with a deadly look. Our hero remembers turning the tables on the goddess and has no regrets. The image of the book Antiphon's eye flashes in his mind, reminding him of the danger, and for dragging innocents into the fight. He won't take the blame alone. With a confident smile, he prepares for what's to come, because if his comrades perished for him, our boy wouldn't be able to sleep at night. And with a crazed look, he bids farewell to his squad to protect them. Meanwhile, at the barrier of the Elven Mother Tree, someone approaches. An elf wakes up in despair because the person in front of her should be gone. The man then asks if she thought she was the only survivor of that massacre. Suddenly, a white-haired young man named Dame appears with a coin in his hand. He throws a bag of gold and says that with it, he buys Soma's life, and he also asks for the end to look like revenge for the warrior Helga. An old photo shows that Aim was the strongest assassin in the heroine's group. Back at the Stonewall Fortress, our hero and Marie await the enemy's attack. Suddenly, a blonde maid is surrounded by guards who ask for the password. She says she is just a humble servant and knows nothing about passwords. The girl then lifts her dress, but the guards call her a mocker. With a quick spin, she attacks the 2 guards with hidden blades. And with a crazy look, she screams that the bounty on Soma's head is hers. However, in the next second, a gun is pointed at the side of her head. With a clean shot, the intruder is sentenced in the name of the Demon King. Right after, a mysterious man steps on the ground near a body lying on the floor. He then informs Secretary Marie that he has taken care of the 37th assassin. Meanwhile, our hero is giving Marie a massage, and she tells him to clean the floor. In front of several screens, the man agrees, and our boy starts cleaning the place. Even so, our protagonist regrets sending Melito and the others away, and he also laments that it took away a point from his chance to look cool in the situation. However, Marie thinks that he actually gained a point for that protective attitude. She then offers to tell him about the 4 strong guys who protected him. The first one holds another assassin by the head with a very serious look. They are modified super soldiers, and the 38th enemy is defeated. Besides him, another soldier finishes off the 39th, and they guard the royal palace. And finally, the 40th enemy is defeated by another member of the elite troop. Together, they are the Forbidden Army known as the Mighty F4. Our hero is super grateful and says it's an honor to be the Demon King's dog. But he questions if the Queen knows that Astit is trying to take him out. Marie then says she only mobilized the troop because she felt sorry for his situation, and with a smile, she even asks if he hasn't learned not to be so self-aware. Our protagonist yells that it's a lie, and that the Demon King has saved him before. However, the two just stare at each other in silence after that tense argument. Suddenly, one of the elite soldiers grabs an assassin and calls him a rat. Marie reminds our hero that he didn't know why the Queen showed up at the tax agency, and with a serious look, she presses him about the explosion at the location, and he despairs. She explains that since the incident, the Queen has locked herself in the astronomy tower. Our protagonist then reveals that she is probably looking for the Cloud Fortress, because he found out that the Demon Queen was once the administrator of that place, and now she is looking for a way to take back control of the fortress. Marie then asks what his role was in that whole tragedy. Before he can answer, she lands a solid punch right in his face. And just like that, our hero is knocked out on the floor with no chance to defend himself. The blonde threatens him, saying that if he lies, she'll leave with her soldiers. Our boy then thinks it wouldn't be a problem to tell her the truth, and that it would actually be a good idea to drag this curious woman into the mess. Suddenly, Marie freaks out and yells, reminding him that they are teammates. He says he just wanted to treat her like a normal person, but that raised suspicion. Then he reveals that the truth is the Demon Queen came to save him that day. The blonde is completely shocked and yells, asking the reason for that. Our hero then prepares to tell his ally the whole truth. The truth was far more complicated than she could ever imagine, and it was all connected to how he ended up in that world. Suddenly, the Stonewall Fortress begins to shake with a huge explosion. Inside, Marie runs desperately, as everything around her is destroyed. Then the room where they were is simply thrown far away from the building. Amidst the rubble, the blonde is completely shocked by the situation. The soldiers yell to protect the secretary and look for F1. The soldier grabs her and says he'll take her to a safe place, but she screams for Soma. Meanwhile, our hero is flying through the night and yelling that Marie is a liar. Far away, we see that for Lord Astate, destroying a building is like a game. The Stonewall Fortress where our hero is located as his main target. Within the domain of the Elven Mother Tree, he can create and destroy anything. His maid Kiko then uses a magnifying glass to find our boy, and she locates him on one of the floors of the building's model. Astit then tells her to mark the target to begin the attack. Their plan is to send micro creatures through the ventilation ducts. Thus, several small, cute white critters travel through the air duct. They emerge from a ventilation grate without anyone noticing. The creatures find our hero and Marie in the middle of the room. One of them lands on Suma's shoulder, marking him as the target. The maid Palm receives the order to slice the building without harming Marie. Holding a knife, she prepares to cut the model, and with a precise strike, the Stonewall Fortress is sliced. The floor begins to crack, and everything around them crumbles. Meanwhile, Astit destroys the model with a single slap. Our boy and Marie are shocked by the destruction. In the midst of the chaos, Soldier F One tries to prevent the disaster. He uses his brute strength to hold up the collapsing structure. However, he can't hold on, and our hero is thrown. The elite soldier fails to hold the structure and ends up being thrown far away. Our boy then flies through the skies, yelling that Marie is a huge liar. Far away, Melito and the others watch the scene and witness the moment. Suddenly, she says she can hear the captain's voice coming from the moon. Hammond then says that after they eat, they'll see if the captain landed safely. But Melito climbs onto the pando and rushes to save our hero, who is in danger. Meanwhile, Astate watches and says that everything went according to plan. His maid Kiko then hands him a phone because he has a call. On the other end of the line, Marie screams furiously and calls him a mushroom head. She accuses him of trying to take out the captain, who is appointed by the Demon King. And she even threatens to roast him along with the other mushrooms if anything happens. With a crazed smile, Astate thinks his script is a little different. Up high, Soldier F1 asks what he means by that. The entire room continues to fly through the skies like a giant missile. It turns out that during the castle's renovation, our hero entered the wrong area, and because of that, Astate simply sent him flying with an explosion. Our boy screams desperately as he is thrown out of the building. Thus, the two of them end up falling together into the dark night. The soldier then extends his hand and yells that he's going to save our hero, and at the last second, he manages to grab our boy in mid-air. With an ironic smile, our hero thanks him for the great catch. The elite soldier then thinks he just needs to hold onto the building, but suddenly his hand simply disintegrates in mid-air, and so the two of them start falling at high speed into the darkness again. Our boy yells that the soldier is a huge liar too. His face contorts with rage as he awaits the final impact. Suddenly, they land on a giant pile of paper or something soft. Our protagonist opens his eyes, completely confused by the situation. He then sees a cute little creature and realizes he can't perish just yet. The soldier says he's safe, but Soma yells at him not to take the credit. Meanwhile, a young man watches the building being launched from the castle. The room they were in was about to shatter from a height of 200 meters. However, the cute little creatures saved our hero's life with a cushion. Far away, Marie grabs a radio and asks what they're up to now. On the radio, Marie questions him, asking if he isn't supposed to take out Soma to become a Kingforge. With a cynical smile, Astate pretends not to know who our hero is. He says he just accidentally sent a human flying, and if Soma survives the fall, it's all just an accident. Meanwhile, the building crashes into a deserted, empty quarry. Suddenly, a heavy rain starts pouring down on our protagonist. Soldier F1 gets up in the middle of the storm to help. He then asks Soma if he's okay after that fall. With a thumbs up, our boy replies that he's great and thanks him. The soldier thinks he has a screw loose and carries him on his back. Astate also says it's not his fault if assassins happen to find him. So the soldier continues to carry our hero through the rainy quarry. However, several men in suits with umbrellas appear and surround them. They are an assassins syndicate hired for this mission. Our hero then realizes it was all a well-planned trap. One of the men with an eye patch yells, calling our boy a monster. It turns out that to lure him out, many were sacrificed. The group's leader asks if he knows how many comrades perished in this. With no choice, the soldier puts our hero on his shoulders to fight. Our boy grabs a pipe and says he'll be his left hand in the battle. And so, the two of them charge forward and run over the assassins' heads. The soldier runs in the rain with our hero on his shoulders like a team. They face the horde of enemies, ready for battle in the quarry. In the midst of the fight, the soldier uses a metal beam to defend himself. However, our protagonist is knocked to the ground during the combat. Even so, the soldier continues to fight against everyone around him. One of the assassins then leaps to attack our hero with his umbrella, but the soldier hits him with a powerful kick, defeating him on the spot. Another enemy approaches from behind for a surprise attack. However, the soldier simply stops the blade with his bare hand. The leader tells everyone to advance, and the injured one just wants to go home. Furious, The boss yells that desertion is a capital crime, and so, the entire crowd of assassins charges forward at once. Our hero sees the perfect chance to attack with everyone grouped together. He then jumps from the soldier's back for an aerial attack. With his pipe, he attacks the enemies from above without any mercy. With a crazed look, our boy shows that he has several pipes. A red energy then traps the entire crowd in place. The leader complains about the mass attack tactic that went wrong. Our hero returns to the soldier and says his left hand is back. The two face the leader of the assassins with a determined look, and with a spinning kick, they defeat everyone around them. Our boy then yells that the left hand is in action. Suddenly, the soldier is trapped to spikes that emerge from the ground. Even with swords stuck in his body, he remains standing. Chains then appear out of nowhere and completely bind him. He is immobilized by the assassins, who surround him relentlessly. The leader reveals that the demonic sword paralyzes him completely, and he says that a Royal Guard soldier is a valuable prize. But suddenly, a lightning bolt strikes the leader, and he screams in pain. Our hero seizes the chance and attacks without hesitation. The other assassins run to help hold the chain. However, one by one, they are struck by lightning in the middle of the rain. Lying on the ground, our boy is stepped on by one of the enemies. He yells furiously and tells the man to let him go immediately. Even injured, our protagonist doesn't give up on fighting for his life. Suddenly, the scene shifts, and we see our hero being kicked in the face. However, it was all just a movie screen with him watching himself. One of his versions then asks why they always get beaten up so much. Another version stands up and yells at him for being a loser and forgetting his oath. On the screen, a flashback begins, and he yells that he will reign at the top of the world. Two new versions appear and complain that other heroes are already in action. Our boy then covers his ears and says that's completely impossible. The other versions say there's no time for character development, and that the only thing that matters is making the protagonist look cool. But our hero freaks out and says it's impossible as a subtitle appears. A cowboy version then says he has a better idea than the others. He advises our boy to stop fighting that way because it's suicide. Suddenly, all the versions start yelling and arguing at the same time. Tired, our hero says it's useless, and that if anyone thinks they can do better, they should go ahead. And so, everyone in the cinema falls silent after that challenge. With a dark look, our protagonist seems to have made a decision. He stands up, and another version tells him not to get cocky, just because he stood up. Our boy then yells and asks if anyone there can fulfill the promise he made. One of his versions replies that if any of them could, they would already be doing it. With a determined look, he thinks that if he perishes, he'll just come back to life. And our hero thinks that since his life has improved, he deserves to relax a bit. One of his versions then yells that he swore to become the Demon King, and continues, saying that not fulfilling a childhood dream is no reason to perish. However, he suddenly freaks out, his eyes glowing with rage. Another version then defeats him and says he's finished for his insolence. The scene then returns to the fight, where a giant hammer hits our hero. Back in reality, a man holds the sledgehammer in the rain. The leader of the assassins yells furiously and asks why he took him out. The man then says they were just laughing and doing whatever they wanted. In the cinema, our hero's versions panic, not knowing what to do. Suddenly, the man hits his own boss with the sledgehammer. The leader then screams in pain as he's hit by the unexpected blow. The assassin says he won't let anyone treat him like an idiot. Suddenly, he transforms into a blonde who activates massacre mode. With his hands, he unleashes several beams of red energy at once, and so he attacks his own comrade with all his power. The red energy then spreads and hits all the assassins. The blonde then lands on the ground amidst an aura of power, and all the enemies are defeated and fall lifelessly to the ground. The former leader of the assassins is shocked and injured in the midst of the chaos. The leader yells that the objective was to capture our hero alive, not the other way around. Lying in the rain, our boy looks completely defeated on the ground. Even so, he lifts his head and says he did all that to win. Suddenly, the leader is hit by a red laser beam to the head. The blonde soldier then says his mission is to ensure Soma's safety. Far away, Marie yells into the radio, asking where they sent our hero. Furious, she continues to scream and demands an answer from the other end of the line. However, Asti just laughs and says his memory has been really bad lately. Marie then sees a large pillar of red energy rising to the heavens. The energy spreads out in beams, and she calls him an idiot for his attitude. On a rooftop, she gives the order to bring our protagonist back alive. The young man next to her asks if the situation isn't under control with F1. However, the soldier holds our hero and realizes things are looking pretty bad. They are surrounded by new enemies, and the soldier thinks he's acting. An old man then introduces himself as Aim Grim and talks about his student, Helga. He faces the two and says the blonde took out many of his dear students. In a flashback, we see that the students were orphans of the Great War, and he raised them to be the hope of humanity. But our hero is suspicious. The old man cries and says their lives were taken too soon, just like Helga's. Suddenly, a giant hand appears, and he asks them to wait a second. Our hero then yells that even if his story makes no sense, he should stick to his principles. He explains that Helga challenged the demon, king of her own free will, and that in the end, she was defeated by the great villain. The old man then says her end was honorable because it was her destiny. However, our boy questions him about the tragic past of his students and asks what that has to do with them attacking him at that moment. With his face red with rage, the old man stammers, not knowing what to answer. Our protagonist then laughs and says he has a lot of nerve preaching with that face. He continues his lecture and asks if he's grown old for nothing. Annoyed by our hero's words, the old man spits blood in anger. And so, the score is 1-0 for our boy, who starts to teach. The soldier praises him for his courage, but he says he's faced hundreds. However, our hero admits he probably can't defeat them, and he wonders if he didn't provoke the old man too much with his words. The soldier then reveals that he is strong enough to shoot lasers. A little cow appears and says that level 10 is as tough as an ox, and a little monkey explains that level 20 is as agile as a monkey. Levels 30 and 40 don't stand out as much, but 50 is an explosion. And with puppets, the old man explains that level 100 is not far behind the Demon King. Our hero then realizes he's explaining the power system. The soldier asks if the puppets were really necessary for the explanation. The old man freaks out and says he's a famous educator and is just explaining the system. Our hero then says that it still lacks the cool factor in the presentation. The old man continues his speech and says clarity is the most important thing. He even asks if changing the name of a generic setting makes it innovative. And so, the score is 1-1 between our hero and the old educator. The old man then says the soldier's power hasn't reached level 50 yet, and he reveals that his laser was a one-time use ace up his sleeve. Our protagonist freaks out and yells, asking how he knows all that. The soldier confirms the information, and our hero is shocked by his honesty. The old man then says the defeated enemies were just bait, and that the real enemies are the 7 best students from his school. A group of warriors appears on top of the mountains amidst the rain. They are so strong that they have already surpassed the mortal realm and are almost at level 50. Suddenly, the soldier puts our hero in a basket, and the old man complains. With an oar, the soldier begins to row away, taking our protagonist with him. And so our hero is lifted in a basket to the top of the mountain. From the top of a cliff, a mysterious silhouette awaits them. Our boy yells to get out of the basket, but the soldier keeps rowing. With a determined look, the blonde soldier faces the storm and moves forward. Suddenly, the mechanism holding them shatters into several pieces. The old man then smiles and calls him a cunning fox for his strategy. Our hero then falls from the cliff, and several objects follow him down. Among them are animal bones and other debris from the mountain. Even a woman's handbag falls along with our protagonist into the abyss. The soldier explains that those who don't reach level 50 cannot fly. He then faces the enemies and says his mission is to protect our hero. One of the students says their mission is to defeat the soldier and finish Soma. The old man praises the level 49 student for his adaptability. The masked young man says it will be a piece of cake, and the old man comments on his skill. With a strange weapon in hand, the soldier prepares for battle. However, the student is brutally defeated, and the old man introduces him to the others. Sitting on the soldier's back, our hero says a screwdriver is enough. The old man then reveals that he saved a weapon as a surprise for the fight. The soldier then says he also has a surprise for the old enemy. Lying on the cliff, our hero screams that he has acrophobia and panics. Suddenly, one of the students charges forward and tells everyone to stay back. The old man explains that he is number 4 and is as tough as iron. However, the soldier simply stops his attack with his own hands, and the old man reveals that despite his defense, his power is only average. The sumo wrestler approaches the soldier to attack. Without wasting time, he shoves his weapon into the enemy's mouth, and with a cold look, the soldier asks if he's also tough on the inside. Suddenly, the blonde student attacks the soldier with his sword. The old man Aim gets excited because the genius of the holy sword has injured the enemy. However, the soldier calmly grabs the young man's arm. He says that if he is superior to the sword, it cannot harm him, and lifts the wrestler. With one blow, he uses the student as a club and hits the other one on the head. The blonde is thrown far away and screams that he no longer believes in humans. The soldier then faces another enemy who is slowly approaching. A masked young man appears with a giant bomb on his back, and the cigarette in his mouth accidentally lights the fuse of the explosives. The old man then reveals that student number 1 has regenerative powers. The blonde soldier just watches the scene with a very serious look. Suddenly, a gigantic explosion occurs in the middle of the battle. The old man Aim says that getting close to level 50 is to become a monster. Far away, our hero Soma desperately screams for soldier F1. He wonders why the backup hasn't arrived to help yet. A blue-haired young man then yells that it's because they are weak. The scene then cuts to a fight where someone is getting beaten badly on the ground. With a powerful punch, a boxer defeats one of the enemies on the ceiling. Meanwhile, a gymnast delivers a spinning kick to another goon. In a stylish pose, the reinforcements introduce themselves as the F4. The blue-haired girl complains that compared to F1, they are very weak. In the rain, she runs away from a giant woman who is chasing her. One of the female enemies complains about the exam-based education and gets annoyed. The blue-haired girl tries to seduce her to escape, but it doesn't work. The gymnast complains about having to clean up the mess just because she's number 10, and with her eyes red with rage, she complains about not being able to obtain the crown. The girl then tells the enemy to give up on her and go after the captain. With a stomp on the ground, the gymnast prepares for her attack, and with a powerful kick, she hits the blue-haired girl square on. The blow also hits Hammond, who was nearby, and he goes flying. Far away, Soma's team watches the captain flying towards the moon. Suddenly, Melito gets on the panda and rushes to help our hero. Hammond then decides to go along and runs after them with a box in his hand. A map shows their path from the fortress to the quarry and the forest. In the rain, they see the enemies attacking each other non-stop. A mysterious man appears and asks for passage in the middle of the confusion. Another map shows that their path is now from the quarry to the forest. Kneeling, Hammond begs for forgiveness, saying he's just a bystander. The F4 then asks where Captain Soma fell in the forest. Melito tells Hammond that if the 4 of them join, they can win. And so, the group runs through the forest to find our hero. However, they are surrounded by the old man Aim's students from all sides, and several enemies appear to prevent them from reaching Soma. With a stomp on the ground, the F4 prepares for the great battle. One of the soldiers orders the defensive weapons to be prepared for the attack. Suddenly, a countdown begins while someone is climbing, and at the end of the countdown, a large explosion occurs at the location. Hammond is shocked by the surprise attack and wonders who they are. He then looks for Melito so they can escape the confusion. However, A jet of water hits him squarely and sends him flying. With a crazed smile, he realizes he has fallen into a trap. His counterattack fails, and he sees one of the soldiers defeated. One of the female students questions if he's not going to fight, but he asks for help. She then calls him trash and tells him to stay quiet in the corner. Sitting on the ground, Hammond pretends he sees nothing, hears nothing, and knows nothing. The voices of the fight echo in his mind as he hides. He continues to repeat his mantra to avoid getting into more trouble. Hiding, Hammond sees the gymnast about to finish off Melito on the ground. He then remembers his little daughter's face in a flashback. With a pink ribbon in his hair, he is filled with determination, and so he runs with open arms to protect his friends. However, the gymnast hits him with a powerful kick right in the face. Her boot steps on Melito's head, which becomes covered in blood. With a shocked face, she thinks that today she has only made wrong decisions. Hammond's body then falls, defeated, to the ground after the blow. The gymnast steps firmly on a rock, shattering everything around her. Lying on the ground, Hammond tells Melito to run and save herself from the mess. However, she yells that she brought him there and won't be the only one to flee. In a flashback, she asks why he always treats her to banquets. Eating happily, she realizes he wasn't a pervert after all. He then says his ex-wife was a world-class beauty. The gymnast freaks out and tells him not to get cocky because he's a complete piece of trash, and she says he's not even worth defeating because he's so useless. With a dark look, Melito gives the order for them to be finished off. Suddenly, the panda appears, giant and threatening, behind the enemy. Its eye glows with a red energy of pure power and fury. With a shocked look, Melito wonders if the panda was always that big. But what impresses her the most are the creature's muscular and powerful legs. With a direct kick, the panda blocks her attack and says she's going to regret it. The gymnast then goes flying through the air after having her blow easily stopped. She is completely confused and doesn't understand how that was possible. Suddenly, several strange arms emerge and grab her leg forcefully. The panda then uses its new arms to smash the ground with absurd power. Far away, one of the F4 asks if Hammond feels better watching the show. Lying on the ground, Melito spits blood and looks completely defeated. The blue-haired girl points her gun and asks if she has any last words. Even injured, the gymnast glares at her with hatred and challenges her to shoot. The sound of a gunshot then echoes through the night under the light of the full moon. Far away, an old man and a redhead watch the scene amidst the fire. With her sharp hearing, the girl notices something strange in the air. She then warns the old man that she just heard the sound of a gunshot. He says that number 8 has found an enemy, and they need to finish this quickly. The old man then orders numbers 3 and 7 to ignore the army and get Soma. Number 3 is a masked young man whose weapon is speed. As for number 7, she's a girl with beast ears, strength, and beauty. Thus, number 3 carries the redhead to climb the cliff with his jump. Amidst the fire, a mysterious man steps on the ground without getting burned. Soldier F1 is shocked because even after the explosion, he didn't perish. However, he turns into a masked baby, and his regeneration starts from scratch. Seeing the explosion, the enemy reinforcements realize something went wrong with the mission. The beast girl says to change the plan and buy time for number 1. And so, the two of them advance at high speed away from the explosion. The cyborg soldier then scans the high-speed object approaching. With his mechanical eye, he locks onto the target in an instant. He thinks they are aiming for his friend Soma and prepares to shoot. With his eye glowing, he yells that he will not allow them to escape. Suddenly, a circular energy traps them, and the young man freaks out in fear. He then grabs the girl and yells that he loves her because he's not afraid of rejection. Shocked, she screams and asks if he could talk all this time. Suddenly, a giant fist descends from the heavens towards a man. The blow causes an explosion, and someone screams in fright at the attack. Number 6 then appears and reveals he can enlarge parts of his body. He tells the others to go and joins 3 other powerful warriors. A man in a top hat then emerges from the flames with an imposing aura. The baby number 1 thanks him for saving his life at the last second, and so the beast girl says she's counting on her partner for the mission. The redhead asks if she shouldn't help number 8, but the old man says there's no need, because he's the strongest. Back in the fight, number 8 stops the bullet with her fingers and makes a peace sign. The blue-haired girl is in shock because she stopped the shot with her fingers. With Melito on the ground, number 8 says she's good, but it was a close call. As an apology for interrupting the fight, she says she'll let one of them go. She then points to the blue-haired girl and asks if it will be her, or if it would be old Hammond, who is lying on the ground rolling around. However, she decides she won't finish off the cute little panda that eats bamboo. With her arms crossed, a caption reveals that number 8 has no special ability, but in reality, she's level 50 and tells them to choose who will live. Old Man Aim freaks out and denies that he's deliberately getting in number 8's way. Right after, we see his crew complaining that her rank is a total cheat. The argument heats up, and they question each other's power relentlessly. While the fight rages on, the old man reveals that number 8 is a child with no future. Everyone is shocked to discover she has a terminal illness. He explains that she was the first to reach level 50, but never awakened any powers. The old man then tells the redhead that one day, she will surpass number 8. Suddenly, a large explosion happens right behind them, interrupting the conversation. It turns out that number 8 is trapped in the rock and asks if they are going to fight. The redhead wonders if number 8 was used as a pawn by the old man. Trapped in the rock, number 8 complains about being ignored by everyone. However, the old man says that this was a mission she chose for herself, and this mission was for number 8's own good. She then says that if her master perishes, she will take care of the panda forever. The blue-haired girl can't believe that even the panda has switched sides. With the gun in her hand, she feels that if she pulls the trigger, something bad will happen. Even so, she prepares to shoot with a determined look, and then she finally pulls the trigger without hesitating in her decision. However, number 8 stops the bullet with her fingers again, without any effort, and with a sad look, she just apologizes for what she did. With a crazed smile, Melito starts laughing hysterically at the situation. She then strikes a bizarre pose and mocks Hammond for his pathetic state. Lying on the ground, Hammond warns them not to fall for the provocation, as survival is the priority. He then asks the blue-haired girl to negotiate for him to escape instead of the panda. However, she just smiles and says he's about to waste his chance to live. Hammond is completely shocked and doesn't understand his colleague's attitude. Suddenly, the panda charges forward and bites one of the enemy's arms forcefully. Number 8 then approaches and seems to give a command to the animal. The panda then makes a super cute and adorable face for the warrior, and she screams that she can't finish it off because cuteness is the ultimate defense. The blue-haired girl then reveals her gigantification ability, and with her power, she creates a giant pistol that floats in the air. Hammond is shocked and asks if the benefit she mentioned was that. Number 8 then reveals that her opponent is actually a shaman, and without fear, she stands right in the giant gun's line of fire. The blue-haired girl then takes her normal gun and prepares herself. With a clean shot, she ends Melito's life right there. With the giant gun, she says it's now number 8's turn to choose. The warrior then glares at her with a look full of fury and determination, and with her eyes glowing, she seems to have finally made a decision. In a flashback, number 8 remembers becoming an assassin at age 6, and that at night, the targets she defeated would watch her sleep. Even though they were weak in life, they became terrifying after they passed on. However, her master taught her that the world is survival of the fittest, and that the weak become food for the strong, as is the law of nature. She then says she needs to believe in those words, so she won't see the ghosts. Back in the fight, she prepares to stop the giant bullet with her bare hands. The scene then returns to the fight between Melito and the blue-haired girl. With a crazed smile, the gymnast seems to have a plan in mind. Number 8 then braces for the impact of the giant bullet, heading her way. The blue-haired girl braces herself for the impact of the giant weapon, and she thinks about how number 8 didn't even try to block the shots aimed at her teammate. The shaman then reflects that if it were her, she would have tried to save everyone, but she doesn't get why the warrior is throwing it all away. Lying on the ground, the gymnast says that number 8 could have saved her. The warrior replies that she was weaker, and that's just how it is. The blue-haired girl then screams, asking why she blocked the first attack. Then, in a flashback, number 8 remembers a birthday party with her friends. She even questions what a birthday is, not understanding the concept. Back in the fight, she says that next year she needs to treat the shaman to a meal. With a smile on her face, number 8 faces her opponent. However, tears start streaming down her face even as she smiles. Suddenly, she snaps and starts punching a rock with all her might. And she screams that if she had saved her, the values that held her up would have shattered. The blue-haired girl is in shock, thinking the warrior has gone completely insane. Number 8 yells that if the weak are just food for the strong, then the other girl had it coming. She then accuses the shaman of tormenting her with magical attacks, and says she put a curse on her brain to mess with her head. Crying, the blue-haired girl apologizes to the old man for wasting his chance. Suddenly, a hand grabs her from behind, and a man throws her to the ground. All of a sudden, the giant panda grabs the blue-haired girl to protect her. Hammond then yells for her to run as fast as she can and not look back. However, number 8 freaks out and screams that they're all going down together. Just then, 3 dudes rocking star-shaped shades show up to fight the warrior. One of them says that to take on a level 50, he's going to need more power, and his buddy agrees, saying he'll use the light sealed within his body. The bald guy then adds that if they don't, they won't be able to beat her. Meanwhile, somewhere else, the boxer number 9 is resting on the ground. He fought 3 members of the Forbidden Army, all by himself, and won. Looking at the moon, he notices the night has finally gotten brighter. Suddenly, our hero Suma notices something strange on a rock. He sees an ancient script and feels like the message is for him. And the message reads, "For you, 250 years later." The writing introduces itself as Raphael, our main character's predecessor, and it reveals that it's been 250 years since he was gone. Our hero then freaks out because a ghost just wrote him a message. The message says that his brain won't remember the full name, and that back in his era, his name became that of a super strong hero. Our guy gets tense because he's got an assassin below and a ghost up top. However, the message says it's not a ghost, and that it has a little bit of foresight. Underneath a giant full moon, our hero is still stuck on the cliff. Suddenly, he notices a glowing script on the ground right in front of him. Shocked, he wonders if that was also a script, just like the one on the rock. The message says he's going to bite the dust, and our hero laughs because he's been hearing that since chapter 13. He then hears the gunshots and explosions from the forest, and remembers that Soldier F1 is fighting. Suddenly, he snaps and thinks there might be a way for him to survive here. So our main character drags himself across the ground to read the rest of the message. The first thing he sees is the number 5, and he wonders what that's all about. He then wonders if it could be a code or a survival route for him. Right after, the number 4 appears, and the count just keeps on going. Upon seeing the number 3, our hero starts breaking into a cold sweat and getting worried. And with the number 2, he starts to panic as he realizes it's a countdown. Finally, the number 1 appears on the ground with an intense, threatening glow. He then yells that this isn't a prophecy, but a timer for his demise. As the countdown ends, he crouches on the ground and starts thinking about his life. And he wonders if he'd have any regrets if he were to kick the bucket right then. With his eyes wide open, he stares at the sky and continues his silent reflection. But then he freaks out, shouting that he has tons of regrets and can't believe this. And he adds that the goddess's faction only came for revenge and are totally useless. With a crazed smile, he yells that he doesn't care about prophecies and that nothing will go according to plan. Suddenly, our hero feels like he hit something on the ground. Touching the rock, he finds a box hidden underneath it. With a surprised look, he sees there's another text written on the box. And this text said that his rebellious spirit was the path to survival. Meanwhile, somewhere else, the fight continues under the light of the full moon. Soldier F1 faces off against his enemy, who is covered in flames. The old man, Aim, questions why he keeps fighting if he's just an assassin. And he also reminds him that the kingdom's elite could arrive at any moment. Soldier F1's shadow stretches across the ground with glowing red eyes. The old man then says the Forbidden Army has gotten pretty chatty all of a sudden, and the pink star on his face stands out in the middle of the darkness. Aim then says with a look of contempt that the soldier is mistaken. Suddenly, he starts yelling, calling the royal elite out to the fight. The old man then screams for them to hurry up and get them all ready. The battlefield then falls silent after that challenge. With his half-robotic face, Soldier F1 stares down his old enemy. With a scornful look, the old man continues his taunt, and he says that Suma is just a pawn that nobody really cares about. With a clenched fist, Soldier F1 says that they are there to protect him. The old man then says he's going to ask the soldier one more time. Soldier F1 glares at the old man and asks where this so-called elite he was talking about is. With his hair on fire, he says they could arrive any second now. Suddenly, the soldier senses something and turns around with a very surprised look. An annihilation beam appears in the distance, and he wonders if an ally has found an enemy. However, two of Aim's students take the chance and trap him with chains. One of the girls then says he let his guard down and smiles mischievously. All of a sudden, a giant birdman leaps towards him to crush him. The man explains that by turning to metal, he becomes as heavy as metal itself. The red-headed student then yells for number 6 to hurry up and finish him off. Meanwhile, number 5 summons a giant and powerful blue energy hand, and number 7 meditates, creating a sacred sword of pure fire in the air. Number 5 then says he got an idea from the last fight he was in. What if he used his giant hand to hold his teammate's sacred sword? That would be the ultimate combo, and the two of them freak out over the brilliant idea. The energy hand then gets ready to grab the sword, and the Birdman complains. Old man Aim celebrates, because this way they'll defeat the army and our hero Suma. Down on the ground, Soldier F1 is completely immobilized by the enemy. He then thinks that if they use the beam, their secret is no longer safe. The Birdman is shocked that he's lost in thought in the middle of a fight. The scene then cuts back to the full moon, where our hero is still all alone. Meanwhile, somewhere else, number 7 is scaling a cliff while carrying number 3. Just like that, the girl climbs the massive rock wall with her partner on her back. They were avoiding Soldier F1 to reach the top in silence. The goal was to launch a surprise attack on our hero Suma, who senses the danger.